Donald Trump is laughing as the EU is beginning to collapse and Mark Carney's deals are backfiring. And this is coming off the huge news that we got today. The Supreme Court is lifting their limits on the ICE raids, allowing them to launch new ICE campaigns, crack down on these businesses, and help them rebuild the U.S. For some reason, Carney chooses now to double down on the connections with the EU, even though the Ukraine-Russia conflict is heating up. Top Russian officials are saying Western Europe is economically irrelevant. They're starting to be proven correct, especially since even Canadian analysts are saying there's no replacement for the US market. But we know Canadian media has to run cover, and they're putting out hit pieces now saying that the US is the biggest risk to Canada for disinformation. It's getting absolutely crazy out there, but at the end of the video, a world record was just broken. I've not seen anybody talk about this, but it's really exciting. A human feat that we all need to feature. I think we should talk about it. There's a lot to talk about in today's video, so let's get into it.
Thank you. Back to our top story. The Supreme Court handing down that 6-3 ruling that clears the way for the Trump administration to restart sweeping ICE raids across Los Angeles. Paul Perez is here now to react. National Border Patrol Council President. Paul, your reaction first to this ruling.
Yeah, this is great for our agents, but it's even better for the citizens of California and our country because it's going to move the impediment of us allowing to go after these criminals that are all over the country. And so it's really great news. Our agents are very well trained. They undergo a very rigorous academy that's both mentally and physically demanding, where we study constitutional law, immigration law, and criminal law. And so they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and just quickly, like, people don't understand that there are massive economic effects to these raids, and that's why I want to talk about it, especially when we get to what this means for investment in the U.S. and the new trade deals that are happening and how this is going to apply to Canada, because I think it is huge. But the economics of this, you know, people, because I was arguing with somebody online and they said, well, you can't blame them for increasing house prices and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, that's not the only factor. But the fact is, if you have massive population growth through immigration, it is going to affect housing prices, even if they're illegal.
Only is going to help us do the job a lot better.
And Paul, DHS reacting to this ruling, they say in part, quote, "This is a win for the safety of Californians and the rule of law. DHS law enforcement will not be slowed down and will continue to arrest and remove the murderers, rapists, gang members, and other criminal illegal aliens that Karen Bass continues to give safe harbor." Paul, what this ruling is essentially going to do is allow Border Patrol, your men and women, to use location, job type, physical appearance, Spanish speaking as some of the factors when making arrests. Why are those factors important to use?
And we're going to get into those factors in a second, but we actually have seen there's a meeting of the Five Eyes happening right now that's specifically about mass migration and the effect that it's having on nations' securities and stuff like that. So I only think this is going to heat up. More powers are going to be granted on these things.
Those are all considered articulable facts. You know, all our agents and officers are trained on how to testify to everything that we do. We understand that all the actions that we take may wind up having us sit in front of a judge and explaining our actions, because every defendant has the right to counsel, and most of these attorneys are going to try to suppress evidence or suppress the stop. And in this case, it allows us to use those articulable facts to establish the reasonable suspicion or the probable cause to effect an arrest. So we know what we're doing. This only allows us to do it, and it takes into account all of those factors that you mentioned.
One of the things he said was, yeah, sometimes we show up to these locations and people just start running, which is like, yeah, okay, that's actual proof we can use in court as probable cause. And I'm like, yeah, I guess so, if you show up and they panic. But on the same day that this went off, we just got the Department of Homeland Security has announced ICE operations in Chicago, which I found, again, interesting timing, but it's a sanctuary city.
Homeland Security also announced this afternoon that it is launching a new immigration crackdown operation in Chicago. In a post this afternoon, the department said Operation Midway Blitz will, quote, target the criminal illegal aliens who flocked to Chicago and Illinois because they knew Governor Pritzker and his sanctuary policies would protect them. The move does come as President Trump continues to push for National Guard troops to be sent to Chicago to crack down on crime.
Yeah, and I think it will be, again, legitimately interesting to see how well these crime crackdowns are going to work, how well these ICE raids are going to work. And I think they are working and helping prove Trump's point. The funny thing is, so Bloomberg put out this article here, and I actually think it's the opposite of their conclusion. So they said Trump's Made in USA push is undermined by the Hyundai raid and the visa flaws. Well, that's not actually true. Like, one of the things they're trying to say is President Donald Trump's economic pitch for forcing foreign companies to bring jobs and production to the U.S. has a major contradiction due to U.S. enforcement actions targeting the workforce building these projects. Well, okay, that's interesting, which we'll get into in a second. The recent immigration raid at Hyundai Motor Co., LG Energy Solutions Limited, Battery Venture in Georgia has exposed the issue of companies struggling to find easy visa options to bring in foreign engineers and subcontractors. The crackdown is sending a chill across other companies like Samsung. SK & Co. have invested billions in the U.S., with South Korea expected to push for pragmatic tweaks in U.S. visa rules to keep the economic viability of these projects. How about this? You focus on hiring American citizens or finding people, yes, specifically who are the skilled labor who can come in and do this. But if they're coming in illegally to build these factories, probably not the best staff. And we have two major updates on the trade war here. We have a quick little clip on what's going on with some border businesses. And then we also have a clip in a second. Danielle Smith is trying to get her own bilateral trade deals going with the U.S.
Those tariffs and ultimately the broader trade war with the U.S. making for a painfully slow summer for duty-free shops. At least one store has closed. CTV's Sarah Plowman on what's needed to save others.
Along New Brunswick's border with Maine, a long-standing duty-free shop is now shut. The owner felt he had no choice. Travel here is down, and so are sales.
I cannot continue to pay the bills when there's no money coming in.
Now, souvenirs sit on mostly empty shelves. Some items symbolize the U.S.-Canada partnership, but John Slip has watched that relationship fray.
This relationship is taking a long-term change. Canadians are not going to rush back across the border just because there's a trade deal.
And that's the thing that's insane to me. Again, I say it in probably almost every video. Largest land border in the world. We should be absolute best friends. 90% of the Canadian population lives within 200 miles of the United States. Now, for some reason, the federal government has decided to make the most antagonistic relationship with the U.S. We are going to get into Europe falling apart. We're going to get into new Russia attacks on Ukraine. And all of these things, we are painting a picture yet again why Canada and the U.S. should be working together to build the strongest economic zone. But luckily, Canada still has one leader. It's Premier Danielle Smith, who's gone down to the U.S.
Well, Premier Danielle Smith is in Colorado until Wednesday. She is promoting our province as a reliable energy partner. The Premier will meet with American officials and industry leaders in both energy and agriculture to strengthen that cross-border partnership. Smith and Colorado's governor previously signed a memorandum of understanding to align and improve regulation. It was also meant to share the best practices in areas like carbon capture and hydrogen development. In 2024, bilateral trade with Colorado totaled more than $5.9 billion.
We're going to see the heating up of Alberta exiting and becoming their own sovereign nation or part of the U.S. But for some reason, instead of working with our closest ally and partner, we want to work with the continent that has an active war right now. Have you liked the video yet? We're trying to get these videos out in front of more people. We are trying to grow the channel. If you're a new subscriber, a new channel member, anybody who contributed in this last little while, thank you. I appreciate everything you guys do. Let's get back to it.
So Russia hitting Ukraine's capital of Kyiv with the largest air attack of the war to date, using more than 800 drones, killing a mom and a 3-month-old child. President Trump responding by putting Russian President Vladimir Putin on notice.
Are you ready to move to the second phase of sanctions against Russia or punishing for how?
Yes.
Can anybody think of another country that could supply a lot of the things that Russia supplies? Maybe Canada, maybe the one that's right next to the U.S.?
But he's also going to talk to Putin this week. Here to weigh in is Fox News contributor and drone expert Brett Velikovich, who spent considerable time in Ukraine right in the thick of this war. Brett, how worried are you for Ukraine's sovereignty right now?
Well, Brian, look, this was not just Russia's biggest strike of the war. It was really Putin testing the world's resolve. You know, he struck Ukraine's government cabinet building for the first time in the latest attack, and that was very symbolic. So now Trump's sanctions need to be equally symbolic, and we need to make it much more painful, because the goal isn't punishment for punishment's sake. It's about forcing Putin to negotiate and end the war. Peace is only going to come through pressure, and sanctions right now are Trump's strongest lever, because clearly Russia's been getting more and more emboldened. The current geopolitical climate is such that Putin thinks he can get away with it. No one.
And he thinks he can get away with it because he knows there's a large, the Belt and Road Initiative and everything that China's doing, working with India, all of this stuff. Like, even though I know there's so many hiccups to BRICS, like what currency are they going to use? Who's going to be in charge of the actual trade laws, blah, blah, blah. Like, the legislation of it is kind of a nightmare between them. But the fact is, if they can create, handshake deals where they can get some sort of economic zone, I think currency is going to be the biggest issue. That's always going to be the one they're going to struggle with. But the fact is, yes, if you truly do want to take on Russia, you have to build the strongest North America you possibly can, especially since we just announced that we're going to be doubling down support on Ukraine, and we're going to be Ukraine's biggest partner. Well, another one of those biggest partners was France, and we got some big news out of France today.
Good evening. Canadian officials are tonight reinforcing their support for Ukraine after Russia unleashed its largest air assault, striking a government building in Kyiv for the first time. An infant was among the people killed. Well, condemning what he called a brutal attack, the Prime Minister said a just and lasting peace for Ukraine will require robust and credible security guarantees. Last night's cowardly attack underscores the urgency of that mission.
So the reason I'm smiling right now is because somehow the American side is saying we don't want troops there, we're anti-war. And the Canadian side keeps talking about security guarantees and how we're going to support with soldiers and all of these things. And I'm like, whoa, the Americans are not wanting to send soldiers over, but somehow Canada is trying to get Europe involved in, maybe some sort of kinetic action and blah, blah. And I'm going, what upside down world am I, that the Canada, known as the peacemakers, is going, oh yeah, we'll send some soldiers over there, especially when the people spearheading this was France, and France government just officially collapsed today. So good thing that our biggest partners are dealing with this right now.
Alex, we are going to take the results live. Let's take a listen.
194 against 354. The National Assembly has not approved. 194 for, 264 against. The Prime Minister must now tender his resignation to the President.
France is an online punching bag. We love to make fun of the French, even on this channel. We love it. That being said, they are one of the EU's largest economies. They were Canada's big partner in helping support Ukraine. And one of the main issues that people have with the French government right now is their support of Ukraine. So it's going to be potentially Canada basically there by themselves trying to do all this support. And the big thing is, France is having a sovereign debt crisis because they run nonsense left-wing programs, they overspend, and the fact is a lot of the EU has major financial problems. So this is probably just the first domino. Germany's in trouble too, and they carry the EU on their back in Germany. That's why Putin's top advisors are saying that Europe will be totally economically irrelevant in 5 years. The West's great geopolitical gamble is entering its decisive phase, yet part of the West, namely Europe, can already be said to have lost. Europe today has effectively been stripped of independence in finance, energy, technology, and political choice in effect of sovereignty itself. Asia has taken over the West's functions. The Middle East has become a new financial hub, driving wealthy Brits away from their island. Very true, they're all running away to Dubai to get into debauchery. Manufacturing has shifted to China and Vietnam and is moving further into India and other countries, which again is why I don't want to embolden India anymore with manufacturing. Today's largest trading hubs are Shenzhen, Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, and Mumbai. Ugh. Technological leadership has gone to the Chinese and the Koreans. Within this framework, in about 5 years, Western Europe will be of no use whatsoever, not even as a consumer market, and that's who Mark Carney wants to double down on dealing with. That's who Mark Carney says is going to save Canada. And look, this is obviously strong language. If you want to call it propaganda from Russian leadership, you absolutely can. And by the way, I'm still open to getting honeypotted from the Russian government with any hot Russian ladies, so Russian government. If you want to send me over a wife, I am open to it. But that being said, Carney made this announcement at a press conference today that, with all the security changes going on in the world, we need to move away from the U.S. Let's start with sending all of our military spending over to the continent that is the most at risk right now. Good idea, Carney.
They are also going to be invested in, future examples are going to be invested in through our defense industrial strategy. To protect Canada, to make our country secure, we're going to spend a very large amount of money to make this country secure in a world that's much more dangerous. Now, we're going to spend it in a way that's smart. We're going to spend it in a way that helps shipyards in Canada, where skilled trades people in Canada are working on developing that. Right now, or up until now, the country has been sending 70 cents in every dollar of military procurement outside of Canada to the United States.
Oh, okay. So we've relied on the United States. They've been able to supply us. They are, according to you, according to everybody who says they are trying to hurt us. Oh, they're our top ally. Why are they trying to hurt their best friends? Okay, so now you're going to stop spending money with them. You're going to continue to cut trade ties during the most dangerous time. Oh my gosh.
And that's going to change, and that's part of what our new focus is.
But we did get an update on the last major European investment deal the government tried to get involved with, and Quebec was able to recover $200 million investment in the defunct Northvolt factory. So yes, this was a European company trying to build in Canada, and the federal government did indeed guarantee them $4.4 billion. Meanwhile, they're announcing, we're going to give Canadian companies $5 billion in tariff relief, and we're going to help save them. Well, you were going to give a foreign European company $4.4 billion in incentives, and the best you can do for Canadian companies who are struggling right now is $5 billion? And that's across the board, across industries, all this. It's insane. The amount of mismanagement of the taxpayer funds. It's just so insane that the TDS and the anti-American sentiment has gotten so bad that they're willing to throw literally billions of dollars at European companies, at the expense of taxpayers, just so that we don't have an economic partnership with the U.S. Meanwhile, we did just get breaking news that the Five Eyes are going to be meeting, and this is going to be an immigration crackdown. And the Canadian they invited is horrible.
Good evening, folks. This is DRM News, bringing you the latest from London, where top officials from the Five Eyes Alliance, comprising the US, Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, are locked in urgent talks to tackle one of the world's most pressing issues: criminal smuggling gangs. These shadowy networks are fueling illegal migration, and today, the Five Eyes ministers are rolling up their sleeves to fight back.
It's amazing that literally just a year ago, not even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, literally just a year ago, if you called this out as problems in almost all of these countries outside of the US, you recalled all of the names that you could think of.
Migration is a hot button issue worldwide, and nowhere is it more intense than in the United States, where President Donald Trump has made cracking down on both legal and illegal immigration a cornerstone of his second term.
Which again is why thank you to Trump, and why he's laughing, because Trump keeps stacking wins. He is setting the tone for these immigration crackdowns and these other things that need to happen. These other countries would not be stepping up. But we need to talk about who Canada sent.
Across the pond in Britain, the pressure is just as fierce. The British government is grappling with a record surge in asylum claims and migrants crossing the treacherous English Channel in small boats. It's a crisis that's dominating headlines and political debates. Leading the charge is Britain's Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who's hosting heavyweights like US Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Canada's Gary Anandasangari.
That's the guy who I wanted to talk about. Gary Anandasangari is the Canadian politician who's been accused 3 times of foreign interference, and direct political enthusiast groups, aka the word that starts with a T that's hard to say on here. So we have all of this foreign interference, including our direct politicians, and you'd think, maybe those are the issues we'd call out. But no, the media decides to say the US is interfering with public debate in Greenland and Canada could be next. And the fear-mongering in this article is wild. Denmark's national broadcaster published allegations that Trump administration has been running clandestine influence operation to undermine Greenland's sovereignty. If true, it would mark the inversion of America's historic role from bulwark of democracy and defender of free nations to an authoritarian-style predator, turning Kremlin-grade, of course, propaganda and wedge driving against a NATO ally. And if Washington is willing to try it with Denmark, what should Canadians expect next? Listen to this anti-American propaganda here on why Canadians should be scared of the US and not, you know, every country that's actually been proven interfering in Canada, like India, like China, like Russia. And he touches on it. But the fact that the US is the talking point here, why should Canadians care? Because the same toolkit of provocation, disinformation, and grievance amplification can be deployed here just as easily. Mr. Trump has openly mused about making Canada the 51st state. First of all, not calling him President Trump was an objective choice by this author. I don't always call him President Trump because it's just easier to skip that while you're talking. But if you are in a written format and you specifically call him Mr. Trump, that is a deliberate choice that he chose to not call him President Trump. So I'm going to say that's an obvious bias warning there. And his network of MAGA-aligned influencers include conspiracy peddlers with vast online followings, have already demonstrated that they are eager to stoke separatist flames if it humiliates Ottawa and advances MAGA interests. Leaders of a current Alberta separatist group have actively sought and received attention in the U.S. Capitol, boasting of sympathetic ears and fantasizing about an American facilitation of their cause. Speaking of, I get accused of being American propaganda all the time. However, they're not sending me any money, but they should. U.S. government, I'm open to it because I'm pro-U.S. anyways. I'm pro-U.S. organically. So if you want me to put out pro-American content, I'll do it. But again, I'm pro-U.S. Canada content. I want the US and Canada to be working together. In 2019, Russia tried to amplify and legitimize the fringe, okay, again, political language, Alberta Wexit separatist movement with little success. Well, actually, I'd say it was more than a little success, and it's not quite as fringe since people are talking about it all over the world now. Not only that, that's a great way for them to be like, nobody wants separate Alberta. It was actually all Russian propaganda. There's no way that Canadians are unhappy with the government and they want a separate, prosperous Alberta on their own. It's only propaganda. And this article was literally insane that we are going to compare U.S. propaganda, considering the Canadian and U.S. cultures are so intertwined. We share the same media. Why do you think Hollywood's filming in Canada all the time? We share the same sports leagues. We share the same restaurants, companies. But I do want to share this really impressive world record here because it's just going to show when humans put our mind to something, we can move forward and accomplish a lot. It's a testament to what can be done because people thought these numbers were impossible.
5-10 on the bar. For making those essential last-minute preparations and steps now to the platform.
If you guys don't know, this is Hafthor Bjornsson. He played the Mountain on Game of Thrones, but he's been in a ton of stuff. Huge guy. He's like 6'9" or something, like 400 pounds, but this is still insane.
The Icelandic giant, former world's strongest man, reigning and
also 510 kg is 1,122 pounds.
Defending world deadlift record holder. We are here at the Utilita Arena, Birmingham, England. The Mutant Deadlift World Championships, and Hafthor Bjornsson is strapping to the bar to try to make history here with the greatest weight ever raised in the history of the sport. Here we go.
Let's go, Thor. Let's go, Thor. Come on. Make some noise. World record.
Bjornsson of Iceland, 510 kilograms. Ladies and gentlemen, there it is! Wow!
I know generally you guys don't tune in for deadlift content, but that was really cool that he was able to break a world record. We're seeing history in real time with that, especially if you know the Eddie Hall and Thor drama. It makes it a little funny on the sidelines as well. But we just got so many pieces of breaking news today showing that Europe is falling apart. America continues to make the right steps. And again, America's going to have headwinds that I do think Canada would be able to support, especially when it comes to supplying minerals and all sorts of things. We were going to give almost $7 billion in incentives to a European company for EV batteries that there's no demand for. If we put $7 billion into resource development, that would be way larger and better than any project I've heard announced recently, and it would be awesome for US-Canada relations. I don't think people understand the amount of history that we're actually living through right now, the amount of major changes that could be setting the tone for the next century, and how important it is to pay attention to what we're talking about now, making sure that Canada and the US get along. But if you made it this far in the video, you absolutely rock. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to get these videos out in front of more people. We are trying to grow the channel. If you want to support the channel, you can do that through the link down below. You can do it through YouTube. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.